Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now, as you can probably see behind me, there is a rather large monitor. This has come from AWD-IT and it's the latest in their gaming range of monitors, the X XEXUL49. Now, the aim with their own X equals brand is to offer quality products for competitive prices. And this, well, I've had it for a few days and I wanted to give you my honest thoughts on it. The first of which is that a 49-inch ultra-wide monitor is very large. You should have seen the DPD man outside getting it off the back of the van. There was a queue of cars behind him. I thought, what is this? Who has ordered something this big, blocking up the whole road? And it was me. So, yeah, if you want a ultra-wide monitor, make sure you have the room for it as well on your desk. And make sure you have a wide enough front door to get the box through. I like the font on the box that says the journey starts here. I presume that means the journey from one end of the box to the other. Now, they actually sent me this one behind me to review it. Monitors aren't usually my thing, I've got to admit, but I wanted to talk about my experience as a first-time user of an ultra-wide display. Never used one before. I've used two monitors next to each other, three monitors next to each other for triple monitor setup, but a single ultra-wide curved monitor I've never had any experience with. Now, my first concern was actually, is this going to burn a hole through the back of my head? I remember back in the days of the PlayStation 2 when we used to sit really closely to the TV, you'd get up after playing for a while and your eyes would feel like squares. With this, I think because you're sort of limited in terms of the height, you just have the width, it doesn't feel like that at all. I've also had some experience watching curved TVs and I've often found that I get a bit of eye strain, a bit of a headache afterwards, but that is not the case here. There's quite a sort of gentle curve on it, and the whole experience with using this over the past few days has been a really positive one. This is going to be a very sort of first time perspective video review because I'm no expert when it comes to monitors. All I can do is talk to you about my experiences as a first time user of one of these, and hopefully that's more relatable in terms of helping you out and helping you make a decision as to whether or not one of these is right for you. So the X XEXUL49 here, this is a 144Hz IPS display. It has a resolution of 5120 by 1440. The first thing I noticed was that it's incredibly sharp, incredibly vibrant. I didn't actually touch any of the settings to adjust the picture, though we do have plenty of options, as you can see by this on-screen menu here. This took a little bit of getting used to. There's a little sort of flicky joystick thing at the back of the monitor that you control the settings with. Up isn't always up, down isn't always down. You sort of have to, once you've worked out what does what, then it's pretty easy to figure out. Now, of course, with a high resolution, 5120 by 1440, it is a little more taxing on your hardware. I use a 4060 Ti on a daily basis, and I've gone from playing Cyberpunk 2077 at, well, what was 1080p with the ray tracing ultra preset and DLSS, to running it on low just to hit a higher frame rate. But because of the high resolution of this thing, it looks absolutely fantastic, really sharp. And once again, everything is really vibrant. Night City really comes to life. Now, on a day-to-day basis, I edit videos, I use Photoshop, things like that. I do a lot more work than I do play these days, but I like the idea of sort of snapping DaVinci Resolve here behind me on one side of the display and then sort of snapping the videos and my files on the other side. You can do that with a dual monitor setup, of course, but I like the sort of seamless integration of it all. You can just snap them together, drag it across, and I like the idea of having no black bar between them. It's one very sort of smooth and constant experience. I also do a lot of reviews on mini PCs. You may have seen some mini forum PCs on the channel before, and thanks to the sort of side-by-side picture mode that you can select, I plugged one PC into one HDMI slot, and then I plugged the other PC, my main PC, into the other HDMI or display port, and you can sort of have them side by side on the screen, and it makes sort of recording one really easy. So there's definitely a specific use case there as well. If productivity is your thing, these can be really, really helpful. I was also surprised to see that we had some speakers built in, or to hear rather that we had some speakers built in. They're okay. I don't expect much from monitor speakers, but I was surprised that we had them at all, and the quality is alright. I'd still recommend plugging in your own speakers, or I use headphones mostly, whether I'm editing or playing games, and I often find that a lot more immersive anyway, but the speakers are actually here if you want to use them. I'll also go through the full list of specs as printed on the box here, just so you can get a better idea of the exact specifications. Okay, so for the full specs, we have the 49-inch screen size, of course, an IPS display with backlighting, a 32:9 aspect ratio and a res of 5120 by 1440 and a refresh rate of 144 Hz. We have the brightness and contrast stats there with the response times as well. For the inputs, we have two HDMI 2.0, DisplayPort 1.4, a USB-C with a 65-watt power delivery, an audio out and a DC input. We also have some power stats there as well as some features. We have HDR support, overdrive and flicker free, adaptive sync, AMD FreeSync and NVIDIA G-Sync through the DisplayPort. Now, this tilt and swivel here, I want to mention this quickly because the monitor can be adjusted up and down and sort of backwards and forwards. You can get it in a position that suits you best. So all of this is wrapped up in a package with a 1-year warranty as well. Aside from the FreeSync and the adaptive sync and the G-Sync, one of my favourite features is that we can choose the game mode that suits what we're playing as well. We have an FPS mode, an MOBA mode, and RTS mode, which is nice to see. So it's nice to be able to choose one of these if you want to do so, of course. So these specs are similar to other monitors that you may find for a higher price, for example. Now I want to talk about gaming. So as I said before, for me it's more about productivity these days. Don't play as many games as I used to, only for benchmarking, things like that, but I still do enjoy a good story, a good game like Cyberpunk for example, maybe a racing game, Forza Horizon 5. And when I was playing on this monitor, I actually loved the way that you can sort of see the whole of Night City around you. I was just walking through the streets and the colours really pop. Everything looks really sharp. I know I had to play on a lower preset with DLSS enabled as well on my 4060 Ti, but even so, everything looked fantastic. It was when I got in a vehicle as well and switched to first person mode that it's just like driving a car. If you drive, you know what it's like when you sort of see the windscreen ahead of you like that, and then to the sides is like a blur as you're sort of moving through traffic. That's exactly what it's like when you're using one of these wide monitors. It's literally like a windscreen in front of you, so you're focusing on that one point and you've got everything rushing past. It is a gaming experience like no other, I think, with an ultra-wide monitor like this. When it comes to racing games as well, where you're primarily in a vehicle, Forza Horizon 5 for example, it does it really well. It's a whole new sort of level of immersiveness, and even if you're in third person mode, you just sort of got that extra landscape around you as well. It's like a super wide field of view that just looks really great. I want to talk about CS2 as well, because this was pretty amazing to play. Not only do we have that very high resolution, so things are very nice and sharp, but we've got that 144 Hz panel too. So playing this, the curve sort of wrapped around your eyes a little bit. It felt like I was in the map. Yeah, CS2, this was like CS2 how I've never experienced it before. I'm not sure if it made me any better at the game, probably not, but I like to think it did. Now my primary focus is budget, and this isn't going to be within everyone's budget. Of course, it's down at the moment in price due to Black Friday. I'll leave a link down below. I'm not sure if it will be that price at the time you're watching this video. But while we're on the subject of budget, of course, I like to test older hardware on this channel. So I actually hooked up an old motherboard with integrated graphics just to see what it would look like. And when you fire it up without installing drivers for the first time, Windows is just stretched to the whole display. You can of course set a lower resolution, and then you're going to have black bars each side, but everything, even these older games, I played Half-Life and I played GTA 3, those old games looked really nice. I was using NVIDIA 9200 graphics, so really old graphics. I was surprised at the performance actually, and I was wondering whether or not having those black bars each side would be quite distracting when you've got the image centered. So if you've got the game in the middle, the shade of black each side is so dark that it doesn't even register as it being a part of the monitor that's not active, if you know what I mean. It just looks like when you're sort of looking at a phone screen and you've just got like a black border, your just eyes naturally ignore it. It's a bit like that. So if you want a game at lower resolutions and then save using the whole thing for just productivity and side-by-side tasks, then you can do that just fine, and it doesn't look out of place, so to speak. But those are my thoughts. You know, monitors aren't my usual thing, but I hope you've enjoyed my sort of first-time perspective of an ultra-wide monitor user. It certainly is a completely unique experience, especially when you fire it up for the first time. And after you get used to it, the weird thing is I switched back to this monitor. You might be able to see it behind me here. This is a standard sort of 16:9 75 Hz display. Not only did I really notice how much slower it felt, But I also noticed how odd it was playing games again with sort of what feels like a more limited field of view. It's a really strange experience going back, and it's one of those things where you use one of these and now you're like, oh, now I don't want to switch back. But there we go. If you're looking for an ultra-wide monitor, I recommend checking this out. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below, leave a dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.